Hey guys. Hey Chirpy 624 Dudley. Hey Craig. Hey Stuart. Wazza, g'day. Dan Shed High Fridge. Russ Knox, g'day. If you haven't seen that video from Russ Knox, the video series on making the little shaper, you probably should. It's coming up nice. Can everyone hear me above the TV? David Ian Sachs, g'day. Mark Osborne, g'day. Stephen Lane, g'day. Hello. Hey Maddie, new series from Maddie too. I'm building an oscillating engine. That's pretty cool. Hey Paul, Nicholas Workshop. Bit of lag tonight. Sorry guys. Thanks Craig. Yeah, Matt, it's going to be a nice build. That's my anemic cup of tea. Sorry. Hey Matt, Jim Minnick, g'day. Thanks Craig again. What's happening here? I got back Sunday night. I've done 2 days work since then. I've had Tuesday off, and I don't know if I did very much, to be honest. I unpacked some stuff, I moved some books. Yeah, Brendan, that's about it. It's a bit anemic tonight, don't know why. Hi Nigel, go create. So I messed around here a bit on Tuesday. I didn't do very much actually. It was pretty quiet. Front went on this tender, which I'm not sure I'm really happy with yet. I'm probably not, to be honest. This sits here. So it's just a lift out piece. This angle is a bit close to the front edge. Not sure how to tackle that. I'm probably going to pull it off and file the holes and see if I can move it back tiny bit. Because it doesn't fit particularly well there, as you can see. It sort of does. It needs some adjustment. What I find is that when this angle sits down behind this lip here, or behind this wall, then it kicks it forward like that a bit because it's not really sitting back flat. So these isn't sitting back on here. It's not sitting flat down on top of this angle. So there'll be ways to fix that. I have to have a think about it. Probably just needs a big hammer, Michael. Probably it needs that angle moving back a fraction more. That's what it needs. Anyway, this is going to have a tool chest on it, sitting on top here, and there's a cutout here, and then there's got to be a sill down here, and then there's a fake or false floor in here for the actual foot plate. So didn't do much with that. I feel terrible because I haven't watched anyone's YouTube for the last fortnight. Life got pretty busy and internet got really bad, so I haven't seen Nigel's video about the vices. Haven't seen any of Vernacular's workshop videos. Haven't seen any of Dan's shed work videos. I'm sure they're up there. Started on this too. Bit of work in this. This really isn't the answer, is it? Try. Sorry, guys. So, fitted the front, sort of. It's only temporary for a start. Hey, Paul. Good to see you. This is a fairly big hammer fit. Hope it stays like it. And machine this up to fit on there. This has got to be cleaned up on the front with a graver or something. And this cut off and a hole in it. And a couple of hinges on it, which is going to be fun. And then there's a couple of hooks in here for a crossbar, and then there's a dart with a T on the end that goes in and turns quarter of a turn and locks down with a lock nut. So, bit of work in that. Haven't really done much about it, really. Hopefully, once it gets some hinges on it. We can start thinking about putting the rest of the bits in. Got a harbour holder back in here, and we've got to spend some time. I want to machine this, giving it a bit of a sand up, but it's not really the answer. To go on here somewhere, it's a chimney. And that sits on there, so gives you some idea what it's going to look like. So ended up posting 22 boxes from Tasmania. In one of these boxes, and I've got no idea where, had a pretty good look for them, but they're not here yet, are some stickers from Tom Make Here, who hasn't appeared here yet, but Tom sent me some stickers. New stickers from Tom Make Here, so I wanted to be the first person to show them, but I can't because I can't find them, so apologies to Tom and apologies to everyone else. But they're nice looking stickers. I'm excited. They're here somewhere. Thanks, Nigel. Bench is sort of feeling a bit crazy, to be honest. It's all over the show. Really want to get this somewhere near finished, and there's a lot of bits to go on it yet. make a list of things that need to go on this tender. We're still six screws short on here, or 9 screws or something short in here. These are all like countersunk screws through here, and round heads on the back that probably look good. I don't know. Got the handrails on. Needs guard irons on the back. Kick stuff out of the way, branches and things off the track. That's first thing. We need some springs. So we need axle box springs, 6 of those. We need 10 buffer springs, 4 of those, 2 for the loco as well. We need some sort of a door here. We need to machine some of this brass bar into flanges and set up a couple of vent pipes. And we need to get a couple of these, which seemed like the easy way to do this, and probably machine them in half and make a couple of pieces to fit them on, just as water caps for the vents. So, rain caps. That's something else we need to do. We need to put a hook on here and chain couplers. Probably a vacuum pipe or air pipe. I don't know yet what we're going to do there. We need to put a false floor in here. We need to put a slot in here. We need to put a coal scuttle here on the wall. We need to make a toolbox for here. We need to make a, never remember what side, on this side I think there has to be a brake handle. I've got no idea, but for some reason the driver sits on the wrong side of this engine, I think. Someone might be able to confirm or deny that, but I think he sits on the wrong side. Anyway, not my doing. We need 6 holes in these frames with brake hangers and brake shoes, and they need bars across them that all operate on a bar here with a crank up to the brake. So that's a bit of stuff. Wrong side compared to all the pictures I've ever seen, Dan. So there you go. Don't think it matters much. So that's kind of what it still needs. It's getting heavy. This needs fixing because at the moment it doesn't sit back. It's got a sharp point there, and I don't like that much. It just doesn't fit there properly. It's supposed to. And if it sits on this piece of angle, it should sit behind here. That was the theory. So we'll see how we go with that. It's not quite right yet. And that just lifts out so that when you're firing the locomotive, you can actually get to the coal. Sort of sits in there, but it's still got a gap behind this angle here of about the thickness of the plate, which is about where it wants to be. And it's because it's sitting forward like that. It also needs a return pipe inside from the pump, and it needs a filter pipe to pick up to the axle pump through here, and it needs hose connections through the front. Apart from that, it's starting to look something like. So another month's work. It's kinking forwards because this angle here I put in is just a fraction too far forward. So I might move that, and I don't think anyone will ever notice. So that's that. Fridge is jumping up and down. Wants to know about this. This is my dad's project. I don't think it'll move with a hammer and punch. It's screwed on. Chirp, I'm going to have to probably see how we go. I might reposition the holes, like plug them in and silver solder them and redo them. That's not a big job. So this is Dad's project. This is EJ Winter's 6-inch boiler. Started this about a long time ago, actually. I don't know if he's done a lot to it in the last little while. Always promised himself he was going to get it finished, but it never happened. So I run it in a pickle here last night. Could do with a bit more. It should be pretty good. It has got a dent in here where this soft copper's bent. I'm going to have to make a plug for this and straighten that out, I think, to nail it and straighten it up. So we've got a foundation ring in here. Plenty of tubes. It's got a water gauge glass goes here, which are bought components. It's got a castellated joint here, which may or may not be good. Haven't tested it, I don't think. Fire door here. It's got a cast iron grate to go in here somehow. I think that might need machining to fit. And it's going to need some sort of a system to hold it up. Couldn't find the plans. They must be there somewhere. Haven't found them yet. It's got a chimney, which has actually got a flanged end for a chimney. I don't know if it's going to be quite that tall. It seems a bit ridiculous, but we'll see how we go. I think it wants a bit of chimney on it so that it draws. So it might end up with 6-7 inches, something like that. Which is plenty for most people, unless you're compensating for other things. Did I say that? Not sure what all these plugs do. There must be a gauge in this one, and I reckon this is a filler which must go in here. There's a superheater that's been made. I don't like it much because I think this is silver soldered, and I really don't think that it's going to stand any heat at all. I think it's just going to melt out. So probably going to find a stainless steel one. And not a huge fan of the way this manifold is, actually. It's not really doing it for me. Going to have a bit of a think about that and how it's going to work. We'll see. But anyway, there's a project that I didn't really have. There's a safety valve there for it. It's EJ Winter safety valve. So don't know where that goes on the manifold, I guess. I'm not sure about that. It was a project I didn't really have on the radar, among others, but it's here now, and we'll see. If we're going to TIG one, we'll TIG a stainless steel one, and we'll do something nice there. And that way it can probably run down in the fire a bit further. It'll be a bit drier. What it really wants is skids under it, like metal skids and a winding engine. I didn't say that, right? You didn't hear that here, but that was Dad's plan, was to put a diagonal winding engine on it, the big winch, and skids for logging a logging winch. So that's kind of where it is. In a vertical boiler in particular, my fridge says copper superheaters aren't a particularly good idea. That's what I'd like to put on it, is to have a fairly big mining engine. And I mean, that boiler will run 2 inch cylinder, easy. I think he had thought about making an EJ Winter number 7 engine to go with it, and it'll run that easy, but it's an expensive kit and takes up room and is probably bigger than my machines. So anyway, that's a project. No one's asked about that blue flywheel over there. Maybe we should get to that next. I have this track record. I don't know if anyone's starting to notice this or not. The grate's cast iron. I'm not sure how to even support that or what to do about that, but we'll get there. Go Create, you're probably right. I have a boiler to make and I'm sort of dreading it, and it's fairly sizable for 3.5 inch. And it's going to be really nice once it's on that locomotive. I'm pretty excited about getting that done. So we're going to start on that. I have this track record of building internal combustion engines that never run, right? Really not very good at this. You've probably all noticed that. Craig, this one I don't think you've seen. Have you seen that one, Craig? We're talking about Randy Richards Scribes last week. Now, I pulled this apart because it needs work. This never ever ran. Just going to move this camera, guys. That's the answer. It's not one record, one engine. There's a few, right? And this is one of them. It's around this way. Let's move it. Right? This is a pretty nice engine, but it doesn't run. And I know why it doesn't run, and I know how to fix it. But it's never ever happened because this was last century nearly I built this, and some packing. Disregard this bit, it's not part of it. This is pretty dusty. It was a pretty nice presentation model. It's had a few dings and burrs and it's been kicking around for a bit. and it needs a clean up and a tidy up, and it's going to get that probably. These holes here are for handrails. That one probably goes there, something like that, and this one goes here, something like this. And this one must go here. And this one must go here, something like that. Right, so it's got handrails. These have got rods between them. Stuart saw it. It's cleaner than it was when I saw it. She saw it last week. So this is Otto and Langdon's atmospheric gas engine from 1867, something like that. My history's a bit rusty on this. The flywheel goes on here, as such. Now, Langdon's claim to fame and his invention, which made this engine work, is this roller clutch. Hey, Kevin. There's bits here everywhere for it. This is the valve gear, which needs a good clean up, but that was actually working. What isn't working is this valve, and in particularly the valve seat here, where it's brazed onto the or super soldered on the engine, needs to be rebuilt. So it's going to come off and it needs a new valve seat on it. So it does work. This has gear on it. I don't know how well you can see. This is a bit difficult to explain. But it's got two levers and a ratchet system. Right. A little ratchet wheel there. What happens is that this comes round and the ratchet catches it, so the valve gear doesn't work until the stop here on the piston drops down far enough there that it kicks that out and lets the valve gear do one complete revolution, and that fires. Now this is a vacuum engine, so when it fires, the gas pushes the piston up against it on a slide. Yeah, there's two slide rods here, going here like this. With a rack on it, and that slides backwards and forwards. So it kicks the piston up on the slide, and when the gas is burnt out, you've got a vacuum, so it sucks it back down. And then from about halfway down the track, the exhaust lets it out and governs the speed here with this tap. So fires, pulls down against the roller clutch and spins the flywheel, and then from about halfway down, basically the inertia and the weight of the piston drops down against the opening of the port, and that's what governs the speed of it, because it doesn't fire again until this little lever here drops down on those levers again and kicks the gear out. That sounds really... There's Otto and Langdon. Otto was the guy who invented a 4-stroke silent engine about 5 years later, and this thing became 10 years later, and this thing became totally redundant because this engine in full size, and this is about a 6 scale model, I guess, a bit less than that, probably 8 scale model, generated about 1/4 horsepower. So Otto and Langdon got together. Otto had some pretty good ideas, and he built some fairly interesting engines. And this is basically based on an Italian guy named Revaz, who built a gunpowder carriage using a very similar system, but his gunpowder carriage had some limitations. If you look up Wayne Grenning, I think, is probably the man that you want to talk to about this particular engine. But if you look up the Revaz gunpowder carriage, really good idea. It had no differential and no real steering, and it had no brakes, and a whole lot of issues with that, in that at the end of the street you usually put it through a building or a fence. So it wasn't particularly safe, but that had a torch hole and some gunpowder that did basically the same thing. So Revaz was working on that, and a lot of Italians were at about that time period. But Otto actually made a commercial prototype that was half good and half efficient. It only used as much gas as the amount of power it output, whereas Lenoir's engine, for example, like his non-compression engine, uses much gas as well, it wasn't particularly efficient. If you're interested in this stuff, Lyle Cummins, who was the managing director or CEO of Cummins Engines, wrote a book called Internal Fire, which is an excellent read about early gas engine production. Gosh, this all takes me back. Isaac de Revaz. He was an awesome guy, just that he ran into fences. Brendan, good to see ya. Engine's looking amazing. Congrats, Brendan, too, on the new baby. I should have said that before. New family member for Brendan. Sorry I didn't. So, anyway, Otto and Langdon made this thing actually work with a governor system, and I think that's a pretty expensive book, but I have a copy of it. With a governing system and a actual like roller clutch and stuff. So that's where this comes from. And it's quite a pretty engine, and it runs on acetylene because it needs to, or town gas, because it does need the lubrication from the carbon to keep it running. But anyway, this is the engine that needs serious work. The valve gear, as it was drawn in Model Engineer magazine, which is where I sort of pirated some of the plans from and changed the scale and stuff. Somewhere between me changing the scale and working it out, and the original guy building the engine, and the valve ports got mixed up. So there we go. Nicholas August Otto was onto something with this engine, but he didn't stop there, and Otto's Silent Four-Stroke, which was also an upside-down engine, came out when they came out 1882, something like that. He had that sorted, and the rest sort of history. Tangi and a couple of Crosley brothers, I think too, in England, made them under license and exported them all over the world, and sort of were free enough with the interpretation of the patents to actually make something or improve them and to make them a little bit better. And I think it was probably Benz who was the first person to put, I think it was Benz, was the first person to put it into an actual car. So, a bit of pointless history. But that's Otto and Langdon's atmospheric gas engine. I pulled it down because it didn't ship particularly well the way it was. And it's fired a few times. It's never ever run particularly well. Because of the size of this model, I've just fired it with a spark plug and a buzz coil. And it's got a spark plug in the bottom. Goes in the bottom. And I was getting it to fire, but it just wasn't running the way it should. So that's the problem. Wayne Grenning, who's sort of the resident expert on these anywhere in the world, wrote to me and said, look, this is why it won't work and this is what you're going to have to do to fix it. So that's where we're at. But into early internal combustion engines in particular are kind of fascinating. I would love to have. I brought back books full of early internal combustion engine patents that really I didn't need to have because there's so many ideas for models in there. And this is just one that actually probably would work. The Sombart's another one. There's an awesome atmospheric engine. There's 1,000 pre-1890 engines that tried to circumvent Otto's silent gas engine patent and weren't particularly successful from all over the world. And they all run after a fashion. How big of a job is it to fix it? Strip the paint off. Remake this valve plate, remake the valve, which is a slide valve. Where's the slide valve? Slide valve's here somewhere. In here with all the bits. This is the slide valve. It's got a port in here to let the gas out through the exhaust, and it's got another hole here for ignition or gas inlet, and it's got another gap here for something else, and it swivels at the top. So this piece needs to be remade, and this needs to be remade, and probably the holes in the cover. Honestly, it's not a big job to get it going, I don't think now. 25 years have passed of this thing being a static model, and I'm a lot more confident than I was before. How does the gas ignite? Sorry, Rust and Ox, so I don't know if we covered that yet. Spark plug and a buzz coil. On the full size one, it had a basically like a Primus lamp or a Bunsen lamp out the front, and a port with a flap valve. And when the gas shut off and the piston was lifted, and this is lifted to suck the piston in, this other lever on the crank is what does that. There's two eccentrics here, and two levers. This lever here when this starts to run or turn over, this lever here comes up and lifts the piston up enough to suck gas in, and then it fires and throws the piston up, and the piston coming back down works Eugene Langdon's patent one-way clutch and spins the flywheel, and the inertia of the flywheel continues the cycle. And when it drops down onto the other lever, then the valves disengage against the flywheel and it lifts up again and sucks it. Wow, Nigel, that's a bargain. I would expect it to be $180 to $200 actually, out of print book like that. Seriously, it's a good read though, and it's written not as a textbook, although there's footnotes all through it and a lot of grounds for further research if you want to, and there's some awesome drawings and pictures in it, but it's written as a storybook, an interesting look at these people's lives. When you've actually read that, he wrote a book named Diesel's Odyssey. I think it's called Diesel's Odyssey, which was the story of his father, which is Plessy Cummins, and bringing Rudolph Diesel to America and sending him back, and then he committed suicide or went missing off the boat or whatever, and building diesel engines into earth-moving equipment and trucks. The Diesel Odyssey of Plessy Cummins, which is a really awesome book about Plessy and Diesel. I mean, these people are kind of only a generation back, 2 generations back for me. And this was happening, and you look, I saw something today that for 3,800 years, the chariot was the fastest and most efficient form of transport, basically, and two-wheel chariot. And it got a little bit better as you went. But then all of a sudden, the railways come along, and you've got a cheaper and more efficient way of transport. And then 60 years after that, it landed on the moon. So it's pretty crazy, but this is really interests me. And I don't know if anyone noticed, I'm a little bit passionate about early internal combustion engines, but I don't know anything about them, and I really don't know enough to ever get one running. So, haven't quite given up, but I think this thing with a clean up and some polished brass and a little bit of fine tuning and probably a rework and a tidy up and another coat of paint, this might actually run. Anyway, so that's another project I brought back from Tasmania. This is sitting on a shelf on display for a long time. But engines are slippery slope, and you end up with obscure stuff like this, like really obscure engine projects that will never ever run and probably didn't really even run in the first place. Dan has a Rosebery engine half built, or probably more than half built, a kit for sale. EJ Wintersell, the Rosebery. Was serialised in Australian Model Engineer back in the day, and yeah, it's a pretty big engine. Anyway, that's bits and bolts and screws for the Otto and Langdon atmospheric gas engine, which I will swear at again before I'm done with. There's a pipe with a bellows, so you didn't actually blow someone's hair out with their town gas lighting or heating when the thing fired and put back pressure down the line. So the engine come with a bellows on it. It's got handrails. There's this, because everyone thought this needed a pipe bracket that looks something like this and a little bit gothic for the time period, so that goes on there somewhere too with the pipe on it as a support. It comes with a hammer. Take care, Paul. So, it's also got a needle valve for operating and adjusting the gas. But this is one of those crazy projects back in the day. And I must have still been under 21 because I was in the Australian Model Engineer Encouragement Award trophy at some point. Finished it. A lot of this was hurried through. I noticed that all these were stuck down onto the varnish because I think they were put together wet for the competition. There's a regulator and brackets there which go on here like so. Anyway, that's August Otto and Eugene Langdon's amazing contribution to the 19th and the 20th and 21st century. First one of many. Langdon, of course, didn't get famous, but his inventions used just about everywhere. Like, seriously. Bikes and engines and roller clutches are used in all sorts of things. Now, when we run out of projects, or any of you run out of projects and you've got a Model Engineer Index or online Model Engineer Index, or Engineering Miniature or Australian Model Engineer or any other model engineering magazine, including, oh my gosh, I've got nearly every model engineering magazine known to man. And they're in 22 of these boxes coming from Tasmania, and 7 of them have arrived. This one arrived today. Thanks, Chirp. And I opened it, but I never really looked and see what was in it. So, Volume 1 of Engineering in Miniature. Most of Volume 2, I think. Another one from Volume 1. Geez. Latter stuff. April 2005. No idea what volume that is. This is 1980s. Australian Model Engineer. Issue 123. Issue 159, all the ones in between. February 1991. They're all mixed up here. Engineering in miniature. Back to some of the early stuff. Very nice undertype engine fridge. Australian Model Engineer magazine. (1987) Engineering in miniature. These are all over the show because I just pulled them off the shelf. But I think most of them are there. 1995. It's a bound volume 2002. A bound volume of Australian Model Engineer. Then we're going through Australian English Model Engineer, Australian Model Engineering, early AME, latter stuff. Don't know what else is in here, to be honest. Lots of nice things in Australian Model Engineer magazine. It's a pretty good mag. It's no longer produced, sadly, so the window for actually getting all of them is either a whole lot easier or got a whole lot more difficult, but they are still all available, I think, so it's probably a matter of going through and working out what I still need. There's a HAFCO catalogue from back in the day. I don't know why that went in there. Bound volume of Model Engineer, 1991. Probably got two of most of those, because I would have bought the bound volume cheap somewhere on Marketplace or Gumtree. Another variant back to front. Interesting. Fridge. There's that little mill engine you were talking about. And while we're on the subject, I think there's the Rosebery hit and miss engine. So Fridge has a casting kit half built for one of these for sale, I think. Anyone wants to make a project. That box is empty. So, kind of got 1,000, I don't know what's in here. I've got no idea what's in this one. Oh my gosh, Old Machinery Mart magazine. Jeez. Back in the day. Probably unlikely to, what year is that? Pioneer magazine. 1995. Anyway. Geez, Craig, that's ambitious. It's a good read, though. Fridge, yes. I have those articles are in those magazines. Anyway. I've got 22 boxes of these, and most of them are small format, earlier Model Engineer magazines. Aquarius clock, I think that's a beautiful project. Someone making stainless steel superheaters for sale. Don't think they're available at the moment. There's Singapore, which is Martin Evans' tank engine. This is a nice clock, actually. Aquarius balanced pendulum clock. Always thought it was a skeleton clock. That was a really nice thing. And there's a series on building it. But we don't need another project. Welcome to the crazy world of Emma's collections. Sorry, Maddie. Look, if you need an engine build, let me know. I'll have drawings for something. I'm just over the moon to get all my magazines back with somewhere to put them. And there's a lot of them. These are just the odd ones. This is about a quarter of the Australian Model Engineering. And about half of 1% of my Model Engineer collection. And probably about 5% of my engineering and miniature collection. So that engine will run. Matty, that engine you're building will run. Nearly 100% sure of that. If you finish all the bits and put them together, it'll run. I know this. There's no need to even worry about that. If you build all the bits and bolt them up, it'll go. I wonder if Hafco still do all this stuff. It's a lot of stuff that I didn't know they made. But anyway, that's an old catalogue from... Is there a date on it? Any reproduction of the contents of this catalogue is illegal without express permission of the author. So I'm going to show everyone. Seriously got no idea what year it is. It's probably in the 90s, I would say. There's a winding engine, a double drum winding engine. It's not going to be anything that fancy, but I think that little vertical boiler would look good on something like that. Oh, Matty, you're already finished. It is time for another project. Too quick. So, there's not a lot of gaps in this because my dad kept the subscription running right to the end. So there's not very many years I haven't got, to be honest. Just a matter of sorting them out and putting them on a case. Back in the day. Come on, Maddie, this is what you need in your life. Page 16. There you go. This has got your name written all over it, Maddie. Look at that. Another one. Just saying. Stuart. Cliff and Bundy. You expect to see progress on that. Another one there. Cliff and Bundy. Australian made engine. So, $3 to 5 years is so ambitious. Like, seriously, keep telling yourself that. Start it sooner rather than later, though, because in 3 to 5 years, you're not even going to be close. Anyway, Maddie, it's a slippery slope. I'll find you some drawings. There's probably about 25 or 30 full-size engine drawings coming from Tasmania in a box, different engines. Like sets, not actual drawing sets. There's a lot of engine drawings there. So most of EJ Winter's drawings, a lot of English drawings. The Nigel said 17 years. Seriously, the John Deere's been 25, and that's another project that's coming up here at some point. Nigel did have a video with some footage of his traction engine in it, but someone might have a link to that. But yeah, it's worth going back through his videos to find it. Anyway, it's one little box come today. There's 6 boxes, 7 boxes or something upstairs that I haven't even looked in. Like, seriously, I haven't looked. Most of them are fairly early model engineer, like 1898 through to 1920s. I haven't got a clue. So, there you go. Anyway, guys, that's kind of what I'm up to. I'm unpacking stuff. I'm messing with the laser engraver, trying to get it to work, sort of, better than it is, and testing its capabilities and things. I spent a bit of time with that yesterday. I'm still building a steam locomotive, it seems, and I seem to have picked up about 5 other major projects, like major projects. So I'll probably never live long enough. Anyway, we'll see how we go. The mill, as we get quotes, it gets cheaper. The last quote was under $1,000 to get it up here, Australian. I have to find somewhere to put it. It probably needs a clean up, and it probably doesn't need restoring or anything, but it needs sitting up here on the floor. It's going to need DRO on it at some point. So it's going to cost me a couple of grand to get it to where I want it over a period of time. I've got the cash sitting there to do it. I've got to get it on a pallet, and I've got to get it loaded on a truck. That's the difficult thing. That's where we're at. Getting the thing loaded on a truck at Dad's place is going to be the difficult bit. If we can facilitate that, then the rest is easy. Getting it unloaded here is easy and into place. It's not a big deal. And find a forklift here. There's heaps of them, and I ain't kicking around here. All the neighbours have one, and some of the neighbours owe me a favour, so it's doable. Getting it on the truck is a bit more difficult, so that's where we're at. At this point, I'm sort of thinking borrow Craig's trailer and put the pallet in the trailer and load the mill into the trailer, and then take it to the depot and get them unloaded onto the forklift and loaded on the truck. But we will see. It's not going to happen until there's a tilt tray too. That's another option. It's not going to happen until about the second week in November, I don't think, at this stage. That's about what I've got penciled in for another trip to Tasmania. If it happens before then, it'd be awesome, but I don't think it can happen before then. Craig's terrible with engine cranes and things. He really he's not a rigger. Sorry, Craig, you're not a rigger. I think you need to go and do a course on that. So about 10th of November is about when we're going to, the week after the 10th of November is the week that we're probably going to be loading the mill up. The TIG will probably just ship pretty easy, but the mill's pretty heavy. I think they'd lift 3/4 of a tonne. I honestly think I don't know. I really don't know. Still thinking about that. There's obstacles in the way. Journeyman Randy, g'day. No real plans on that, but it's going to be about that time of the year. Try and get it back here for Christmas. At this point. If nothing else happens. I don't know what the executor of the will, which is the public trustee, I don't know what their plans are or what they're going to do. Whether they're going to sell up or what the story is. I'm not going to know that till next week. If they are going to sell up, well, probably it needs to happen sooner than that, but we'll see. Anyway, all stuff that's sort of boiling there. And probably the mill would have come home last week, but getting it loaded on a truck is the problem. Anyway, that's what's happening in my life this week. That's what all the boxes and parcels are. That's the stuff that I've got home. I've got 1,000 books here that are mostly model engineering related. Yeah, it's just a matter of sorting it all out and working out where it all belongs and where it all goes. And I've got to build some bookcases. Anyway, it's an hour and 8 minutes. It's probably plenty enough for most of you. You'll all be starting to feel a bit sleepy, etc., etc., etc. Maddie, if you need a new project, we will hook you up with something. Sorry, Maddie. And that goes for anyone. Happy to. And say, well, yeah, be kind to each other, and particularly to me, because I seem to be hoarding junk at this phase in my life. And thanks for liking and subscribing and all that sort of stuff. New subscribers, thanks heaps. Really appreciate that. And more soon, guys and girls. I'm going to be out. Take care. Good night. I'll be on Discord for a bit probably, but I'm going to pack all this stuff back in boxes and clear some workbench space again. And we'll see what happens. Thanks, everyone. And I'm out.